The sound of the lunch bell echoed through the empty hallway, yet the building felt strangely heavy, as if it carried the weight of unseen stories. In a quiet corner near the stairwell, a little girl sat alone, tears rolling down her cheeks onto her pink backpack. A few steps away, a tired man in a faded uniform paused, holding a simple lunchbox filled with leftovers from last night. Half a sandwich, an apple, and a small container of soup. His name was Mark Harper, a single father and janitor working in a corporate office tower in Chicago. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was taking a shortcut through the childcare floor to avoid executives walking in from lunch. But destiny sometimes waits in lonely corners. He watched the child cry and felt something inside him break open, a memory of his own son sitting alone in school after his mother left, crying for answers the world wouldn't give him. Without hesitation, he walked over, sat beside the girl, and opened his lunchbox, offering her his food with quiet kindness, unaware that her mother was the powerful CEO of the entire building. If you believe in kindness, empathy, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Mark's life had never been easy. He worked night shifts cleaning floors and emptying trash cans while raising his 8-year-old son, Caleb, alone. His paycheck barely stretched to rent a small 2-room apartment, and the nights were long and lonely. His wife had walked out when Caleb was barely 3, leaving nothing behind but a short note and a trail of emotional scars. Since then, Mark had learned to smile through pain, laugh through exhaustion, and love deeper than life. His greatest joy was waking up to Caleb's sleepy face and knowing that, despite everything, they still had each other. His co-workers, busy with meetings and promotions, barely noticed the quiet janitor who swept the hallways with dignity, never asking for more than respect. The little girl's name was Sophie, though Mark didn't know it then. He simply watched her sniffle while he gently handed her the apple. She took it slowly, staring up at him with trembling eyes. Her clothes were neat and expensive looking, and her shoes were brand new, but loneliness made all labels meaningless. Mark sensed that she wasn't crying over something childish. Her sadness felt deeper, heavier. In that moment, he didn't see wealth or status. He saw a child who needed comfort. He told her softly with his warm expression that food tastes better when shared, and she slowly nodded while eating half the sandwich. Mark didn't even realize that he was already late returning to his shift. All he cared about was helping a child who reminded him of his son. The building's CEO, Alexandra Reed, was known as a woman of steel, tough, brilliant, and intimidating. She had built the company from scratch after surviving a painful divorce. She believed that strength meant never showing weakness, and success meant sacrificing everything else. Her daughter Sophie spent most days in the company daycare or waiting quietly in the lobby while her mother rushed to meetings. Alexandra convinced herself that one day her daughter would understand why her mother chose work. But she didn't know that Sophie felt invisible in a world that praised her mother yet never saw her lonely eyes. That day, Alex had just finished a board presentation when the daycare supervisor called to inform her that Sophie had been found crying alone near the stairs. Alexandra's heart raced. When she reached the hallway, she saw something she never expected, a janitor sitting with her daughter, sharing his humble lunch as if it were a feast. Sophie was no longer crying. She was smiling shyly, holding an apple core and wiping her tears on Mark's offered napkin. Alexandra froze. She didn't interrupt. Instead, she watched the scene unfold, realizing that the man had given Sophie something money could never buy. Comfort, gentle presence, the kind of love she herself rarely had time to offer. When Mark stood up, brushing crumbs off his pants, he didn't know he had been observed. He apologized awkwardly, realizing he must rush back before his supervisor noticed his absence. Alexandra thanked him politely, still trying to process the moment. She asked his name, and he simply replied Mark, before disappearing into the elevator with his empty lunchbox and a heart strangely full. The next day, Alexandra couldn't focus in meetings. The image of her daughter holding a stranger's hand replayed endlessly. Why had Sophie sought comfort in a janitor instead of her own mother? Was she too distant, too busy, too hard? Late that afternoon, she walked to the service floor, something she had never done in years of running the company. She found Mark mopping near the loading bay, dark circles under his eyes from another night with little sleep. She thanked him again, but this time she asked about his life, his family, his struggles. Mark spoke honestly, without bitterness, telling her about Caleb, about long nights, unpaid overtime, and the quiet happiness he found in making his son proud with what little he had. His humility stunned her. She had spent her life negotiating millions, yet couldn't remember the last time she truly listened to someone without expecting something in return. Over the next few weeks, Sophie began asking for Mr. Mark whenever she came to the office. Alexandra started noticing things she had ignored before. How her daughter's drawings always showed her alone, how her smiles faded quickly, how often she reached for Mark's simple kindness. Mark became a gentle presence in both their lives, not because of grand gestures, but because he gave the rarest gift, a few minutes of undivided attention. One rainy Tuesday, Alexandra invited Mark to her office, not to thank him again, but to offer him a permanent position as a facility supervisor, with better pay and hours that would allow him more time with Caleb. Mark was stunned. He had never imagined someone like her noticing someone like him. His hands trembled as he accepted, tears forming in his eyes. Alexandra smiled for the first time without her business mask. She confessed that his kindness had shown her something success had stolen from her, the importance of being present for the ones we love. She told him he had done more for her daughter in one moment than she had managed in years of providing everything except time. Mark's life slowly transformed. He moved into a slightly bigger apartment where Caleb had his own room painted blue like the sky he dreamed of. His son started school with confidence, carrying new books paid for with earnings that didn't disappear in bills. Alexandra, meanwhile, changed the way she worked. She cut late meetings, introduced family days at the office, and brought Sophie home earlier, sitting with her on the couch instead of sending emails at midnight. Her success didn't fade. It became brighter, more meaningful. People in the company began whispering about the strange friendship between the CEO and the janitor turned supervisor, but Alexandra didn't care. She spent her life chasing respect. Now she chased purpose. And Mark, once invisible in the corner of a hallway, became a symbol of kindness that showed everyone that greatness often hides behind humble faces. Months later, during a company event, Alexandra asked Mark to speak about his journey. Standing on stage, holding a microphone he never imagined touching, he shared the story of the day he found a crying child and offered her half his sandwich. His voice broke when he said that sometimes the smallest act of compassion can change two lives at once, hers and his. The room fell silent, not from surprise, but from the weight of truth. If this story touched your heart and reminded you of the power of simple kindness, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the. Your engagement helps us spread inspiring stories that many people need to hear. Special request: comment below what you would have done if you found a lonely child crying in a hallway. Mark went home that night to find Caleb asleep on the couch, waiting for him with a superhero blanket wrapped around his shoulders. Mark sat beside him, whispering a silent prayer of gratitude. In sharing his small lunch with a lonely child, he discovered the chance his own child needed. And somewhere in the heart of a tall building filled with ambition, a CEO learned that strength isn't in power, it's in presence.